Hello and welcome to PUAD630, lecture number 1, course overview. Today we're going to cover a number of topics. I'm recording this via Zoom, and so this is my first recording of a lecture using Zoom. I've used other products in the past. Today we're going to cover a number of major points about the course. First of all, I wanted to welcome you to the class. We'll talk briefly about the course purpose. We'll discuss the text again briefly, and then I'll go over your assignments, the readings, the lectures, discussions, and problems. I'd like to talk about the products and tools we'll be using this semester, including our statistical software package, which comes with the textbook. Its name is Palisades. I'm also trying to suggest to you that this semester that the best way for you to learn decision analysis tools and decision analysis capabilities is to put you in the role of a public sector analyst. And so I'll attempt to do that this semester. We're going to start the semester with, and especially these first couple of weeks, with some Excel tools, some Microsoft Excel spreadsheet advanced functions. And you'll find that these functions are very powerful. And I'll talk about that briefly. We're going to cover other topics this semester as well. We're going to cover cost-benefit analysis. If you're in the public sector, you need to acquire something that's fairly expensive. It makes sense to do cost-benefit analysis about that. Break-even analysis, we're going to talk about a concept called decision trees, MAL models, multi-attribute utility models. And then we're going to spend the other half of the semester on regression. We're going to pick up where you left off in PUAD628 and continue it in this class. And I'd like to assure you that I am an instructor who likes to make things simple. And so regression analysis, whether you feel comfortable with it or not, I'm going to work very hard this semester using recorded lectures to try to make you feel comfortable with regression analysis and to prove that it's not really as complex as some instructors might make it seem. And then we'll do a little bit of housekeeping at the end of the presentation. So welcome. This is a second class, a follow-on class to PUAD 628 in the University of Baltimore Master of Public Administration program. Our MPA program at University of Baltimore is well regarded nationally. And one of the reasons it's well regarded nationally is because it has a degree of rigor. It has, in addition to discussing sort of the management administrative side of public administration, we also spend some time with sort of the analytical aspects as well. So this is the second of two courses that really boost the quality and the respect for our MPA program and make you proud when you get your MPA degree that you graduated from University of Baltimore's program, which is well regarded. I will say this is not an easy class, but I'll work with you. If you do the work, I'll make sure you get through this class. Just do your best and try hard. One thing I want to mention is that submitting things late after the weekends isn't acceptable. It's not a good thing because there's so much work this semester that when you're late on one thing, you're then compressed to try to get the next thing done, and there's something due every week. So we'll talk about grading policy, but late and non-submissions will really create grade problems for you. So you don't want to fall into that trap. This semester, in addition to really written things, I've got recorded lectures for you as well. And the objective that we're trying to achieve is to provide you an orientation to a variety of analytical techniques that help public sector decision makers. And so you're going to play the role of the analyst. You're going to work through a bunch of problems. You're going to write up in nice memo format or report format the results and conclusions of the analysis of the problems that you've worked. And I want to say that both doing the problems, getting the data correct, and then analyzing what it means are all equally important. We're going to use a text which is Albright and Winston, Business Analytics. We're going to use this semester the 5th edition. There's a 7th edition out, but it's not much different than the 5th edition. So why pay the premium price? Let's stick with the 5th edition. And we're also going to use the software that comes with the textbook, Palisades, because it's just really an add-in to Microsoft Excel. So if you know Microsoft Excel in any way, it's really becomes fairly easy to use the Palisades products. Structured course, lectures, of course, lots of lectures, some written. I've tried to record as many as possible. There's assigned readings every week. A lot of the readings are not from the text, and the text is the same text that you used in PUAD630, hopefully, and but it's supplemented with lots of other readings. You actually won't get into the text until the 4th week of the semester, 3rd or 4th week. There's discussion forums because, in an online class, we don't want it to seem like a correspondence course where you just kind of like read and write and read and write. We want you to interact with other students because that enriches your learning process. So there are some discussion forums this semester that you need to participate in. But mostly there's assigned problems, and you'll be given data and you'll use the methods that I describe in my lectures and in the text to analyze the data, to conclude about the data. What does it really mean? What do the results mean? And then to effectively communicate the results to decision makers. So now I will have some things to say at the end in my final comments, but I'm going to ask you, when you're working problems, to only submit one spreadsheet, and I'll talk about how to do that. And then another important part of this is, I know there's going to be a memo that explains things, but in your worksheets, in case you need to provide the worksheets to others, it's going to be important to include comments and documentation within the worksheets. And not doing so will really result in me thinking that it's less effective as a tool and doing a grade deduction for that. So now one thing I want to say is, in this class, it's really important that you understand how to use a spreadsheet. And Microsoft Excel is the one we're going to be focused on. I know Apple has its versions of spreadsheets, and Google has its spreadsheets, but we're going to really be focused on the Microsoft Excel product because it is the most advanced and has the most statistical capabilities natively. And then it is the one that Palisades Stat Tools plugs into as well. So now, if you haven't used Excel before, or if you don't feel comfortable using Microsoft Excel, I've provided 2 lectures, and they're pointed to on Sakai, about the basic functions of Excel: how to copy and paste, how to use formulas, and how to do a number of different things. So if you really feel like you need a refresher before we dig into the advanced features of Excel, please listen to the 2 lectures provided on Sakai. Those lectures cover the basics, terminology, toolbar, basic math operations, how to point to other cells, how to copy, paste, insert, delete, the data sort feature, how to format text boxes, how to include comments, how to deal with multiple workbooks, and just lots and lots of things. Some more topics, how to edit, fill, how to copy formulas, absolute versus relative references, and we're going to get into that in our first reading this semester. How to point to cells in other workbooks, all that stuff. Max, min, average, how to do averaging, how to do counts, if then else statements to have conditional results in your spreadsheets. So lots of stuff in those intro lectures, and I hope maybe even if you are fairly comfortable with Excel, you might want to listen to those lectures and maybe pick up a few things. Because what we're going to be doing this semester throughout is building Excel models. I mean, the public sector decision models using Excel as the center of our toolkit. So we're going to be really focused in the first couple of weeks on spreadsheet modeling. And so I'm going to ask you to read a PDF that I provided, which is an introduction to spreadsheet modeling. What is a model? Well, it's a means of representing a real world situation. And we try to take the real world situation, put it into the model, and then play with it a little bit, do what if analysis. And so in Excel, when you do modeling, you basically have to put your inputs into the spreadsheet, have a model with formulas, And then the formula should produce answers based on whatever type of analysis you're trying to do. And so just like in any math problem. So we're going to spend quite a bit of time and effort on the first couple of weeks just getting comfortable building Excel models. And so you're going to be asked in the assignment number 1, part 1 and part 2, to really build a spreadsheet to model the break-even point. And you're going to be given a real world example. And the PDF file is really good. I'm very happy with this PDF file that I found a long time ago that really goes through this and kind of be useful for you. So in the PDF, the discussion of basic modeling in Excel, it talks about, it gives you a real world example, like somebody's trying to produce shoes. And so how many pairs of shoes have to be made and sold so that you actually get to a point where you're not losing money, right? You're at least covering your costs and expenses, and that's the break-even point. So, and so in order to kind of build that model, you have to, in your spreadsheet, you have to have a place to put in the sales price of the units, the fixed costs, it's the cost of the buildings and machinery, the variable costs, which is your personnel and your materials, and then the quantity that are made and sold of the shoes. And if you know the price of the shoes and the quantity and the cost, you can really, those are your inputs. You can use formulas to be able to do certain things. You can calculate how much revenue based on number of sales, how much total cost based on number of sales, and then what kind of profit or loss you're expecting based on that number of sales. And so these things all vary, right? If you sell more shoes, your loss will go down until you become profitable. And if you sell even more, you become profitable and more profitable, right? And so we like to build these models in a way that makes them adjustable. So you can say, well, what if I sell 600 pairs? What's my profit? What if I sell 1,000? What if I sell 10,000? And so that's what we're going to work on the first couple of weeks. And we're actually going to use a case. And all I'm going to ask you to do for assignment 1, part 1 and part 2, which to me seems kind of easy, is to type in what's in that article, right? What's in the PDF file. So I'm just going to ask you to open up Excel and build a spreadsheet, and it gets you a chance to practice building a spreadsheet, right? And so this is what you see in the article, just like you see here, spreadsheet modeling for sports feet manufacturing, figure A3 in the article. And you can kind of see these things here, right? Now, the thing that we'll want to point out, and I've had students do this before, you can't just take all the numbers in the article and just type those numbers in. So like, and here, when you look down at row 12, column B, and it says 62,500, you just can't type in 62,500 because then your model doesn't change, right? We want that annual revenue to change based on the quantity sold. And so we need a formula that says, if the quantity sold is this, then multiply that. And so what you can see in the brown shade here is the inputs that you're going to put in. But the quantity made and sold is going to be a formula. And then the data down below are also going to be formula as well. Sorry, quantity made and sold, you're going to type that in so you can play with it. But the rest of the cells that aren't shaded are going to be formulas. And you kind of see the formulas here. So your first couple of tasks are really going to be to build something that's actually handed to you, right? So there's no mystery to it. You just have to do it, right? And it gives you a chance to practice some of the things we want to do this semester. Let's put comments in the spreadsheet, use a spreadsheet, use fixed values, use formulas, and be able to do what-if analysis. And so that's really the whole thing here. So, and then you can see on the previous slide, if you go to the bottom, you can see it goes down through annual profit and loss, which is a formula. But then there's another formula that is commonly understood for break-even point. And so we'll ask you to say, what's the break-even point? Break-even point is when do my expenses and my revenue balance? When is things zero, right? When am I covering my expenses? Now, if you're a business, you don't want to have zero. You want to have plus number. You want to have profit, right? But we're always asking ourselves at break-even, and even in the public sector, this is an important concept, which we'll get into later. So, so this is just again, another look at that expanded model with the calculations, right? So now, one of the things that we'll cover as we get into this is we're going to use other methods of calculating break-even points, because in addition to having a formula, a lot of times we may not want to spend all the time calculating the formula, or we may not have the formula at hand, or we want to have another way to check and make sure that our formula is correct. And so we have some tools in Excel to be able to do that. And those tools are discussed in the article that you'll be working with for the first 2 weeks. And so one of those tools is called Goal Seek. And so it's an option up on the tabs in the Microsoft Excel spreadsheet. And I'll show that to you in a minute. And so you'll kind of figure out how to do that. And hopefully you'll recall that I talked about that in this first lecture, and you'll come back and just sort of see what it looks like, right? And I've updated this lecture since the last time. I had an older lecture where I didn't actually show it on the screen. But when you go to use Goal Seek, now I have at the top of these slides, how do you get to Goal Seek, right? So in Excel, you go to the Data tab. Once you get to the Data tab, there's an option called What If Analysis. And then when you click on What If Analysis, you'll see an option called Goal Seek. And so you click on that, and this dialog box that you see here on the screen comes up, right? And so and it comes up as an empty box because it doesn't know what to do. And so I've kind of described here, if you wanted to have, if you have your spreadsheet sort of set up like this, and you want to use Goal Seek to see if your formula is right, your break-even point is right, then what you would do is, using the locations on the spreadsheet, is when that dialog box comes up for the set cell, you would point it on your spreadsheet to your annual profit or loss. That's what the set cell means. So B16. So if I go back here and you look at B and 16, you see that's the annual profit loss, because that's what you're trying to produce. And that's what you're saying to Goal Seek is, I want to produce this number, right? And then it says to value, these aren't great labels, but you type in 0. So you say, what I want to get to, my formula, I want to get to a profit, which is the set cell, of 0. That's what it's saying. And then it says in Goal Seek, it says, and what do you want to like go through? What kind of you want to cycle through? What number in order to see if the profit is equal to 0? And so the answer, as I was saying earlier, is you want to vary the quantity to see at what point your revenue and expenses are 0. And so the by changing cell is you're saying to Excel, go through all of the options of cell B9, which is quantity, right? So if I go back to here and you look at B9, it says quantity made and sold. And so you'll read about how to do this, and these slides will be available to you as well. And it shows you how to set up the Goal Seek, just to try Goal Seek and check and see if your formula is correct, and if the same number comes up as came up in this formula at the bottom break-even point down here. So just another way to do the same thing. I guess it's kind of redundant, but that's kind of how it goes. And so if you enter, oops, sorry. If you enter in the values at the bottom here, and then you hit enter, what you'll get is these results. And so what it does is it actually changes the spreadsheet itself. And so it says, you can see the annual profit loss that you're looking at here is now 0. So it took that 0 entered in and put it in there, and then it kind of reverse engineered the break-even point. So it says you need to make 3,250 pair of shoes in order to have 0 profit, right? Break even. And so it's kind of a neat tool, something that gives you power and potency. And that's the thing about this class, is if you learn these tools, you may not be the person who run these things in the future. You may have a techie who does that for you, but at least you know they exist. And you can say, I would like to calculate the break even of our the pamphlets that we're about to sell with our government agency. And so I would like for you analysts to run through and calculate the break even and make sure, try to use Goal Seek and make sure and see what it comes up with. Again, it gives you the ability as an administrator to be able to ask about these kinds of tools, even if you're not the person who runs them. One more thing you'll find that you have to do in the first 2 weeks is you have to take one other approach to be able to calculate break even, and that's called defining a data table. It's talked about in the handout as well. And so how do you get to define data table? Well, very similar to how you got to Goal Seek. You go on the Excel, you go to the Data tab, you go to What If Analysis, and instead of selecting Goal Seek, you select the Data table. And then what you'll do and you can kind of see this little image on the right-hand side here, you will have set this little image up in your spreadsheet. Now I'm gonna go out to the spreadsheet right now and just kind of show you what I'm talking about here. And then I'll come back here and I'll kind of finish up here. So bear with me 1 second while I attempt to go to a different screen here, which is my spreadsheet. And I'll share the spreadsheet with you. Okay, so this is the spreadsheet we were talking about. You're gonna have to build the spreadsheet. So I did this, right? I typed in up here, just like I typed in example A1. You can see up here in the very top entry box that I typed that in. I typed in the words profit loss. I skipped the next row because the example in the article skipped the next row. I typed in inputs. I typed in all of these things down in column A. Those were all typed in. In column B, I typed in the number 25 because it's an input. I typed in the number 52 because it's 52,000 because it's an input. And I typed in the variable cost of $9 because that was given to me as well as an input. Now for quantity made and sold, there's a formula that says, what you need to do. Sorry, I did this again. For quantity made and sold, this is what you want to keep putting in different numbers to see what happens to all your formulas, right? To all the things below. So again, I typed in 2,500 and we'll play with this in a second. I'll show you. But down below are the things that you want to change based on the quantity, right? So annual revenue, if you look up at the top in the little entry box, you can see my formula for this is equal to B5 sales price times B9 quantity sold, price times quantity, right? Makes sense. But it's a formula. I couldn't type in 62500 because then if I change my quantity made and sold there in B9, the revenue won't change. It'll still always be 62,500. So I can't type it right now. I have to use formulas. 22,500 fixed annual variable cost is my variable cost times units sold. My fixed cost is always going to be the same. The word fixed, right? So the fixed cost will always be the same. But my total cost will be my variable cost, depending on how many units I sell, and my fixed costs, which are always the same. And so that's my total cost. And then what is profit? Well, the formula tells us that the total profit or loss is the revenue, how much I take in, minus the costs, annual total costs, right? So there's the formulas. Now, what's nice about this, if I come back up here to cell B9, and I change that from 2,500, because look, I'm losing $12,000. Well, dag, how many units do I have to sell to get to zero, to at least cover my costs, right? So I'll change this 2,500 to 3,000, right? I'll hit the enter key. Now look at the numbers below, they changed, right? So as I went from 2,500 to 3,000 units sold, I'm only losing $4,000, right? So you can guess that a little bit above 3,000 is your break-even point, right? What if I go to 4,000, all right? Because I know that's going to be a profit number, right? If you look down below, the annual profit is $12,000. So I've made $12,000. So I kind of know what I have to produce and sell in order to not lose money. And that's a very important and useful thing for an administrator to be able to ask these kinds of questions, right? So you kind of see, but don't forget when you build your spreadsheet, you can't just type the numbers in. You have to type the numbers for the inputs, and then you have to type formulas for the calculations and outputs, right? And then I'll just show you over here. This is, I switched to a different tab on the screen. I switched to the Goal Seek tab. And so for the Goal Seek tab, this is the results that I got back when I did Goal Seek. And so Goal Seek actually tells me that the exact precise number that you need to sell. So I don't have to sit over here. See, if I sit on my model and I just say, well, geez, I know that 3,000 I'm losing $4,000, right? At 3,000 units sold. I still don't know what the break even is. Is it 3,010? So I'm still losing money, right? Is it 3,020? So I can poke around, right? And eventually I'll get to using the formulas. I'll get to my break even point, or I can use Goal Seek. And Goal Seek goes right to, once I fill out those 3 fields that was shown you before, it goes right to the exact precise break even number. And this tells you that's 3,250. So, well, let me check that. So I'll go back to my spreadsheet model. I'll type in 3,250, and assuming all my formulas are correct, I get 0 profit or loss, right? That's break even. right? And so that's why goal seek is useful, because it goes right to the number, as opposed to using the formula where you have to kind of poke around a little bit, right? Now, the other alternative, and this has other functions as well as break even, and that's why we're going to spend a little time on it this semester, is using a data table. Now, in order to use a data table, here at the top, I had to kind of make this a smaller font so I could fit it on the screen, right? Let me increase it just a little bit. So that's pretty small. Let me go from, it's currently at 65. Let's go to 75. Be easier for you all to see. Okay, so at the top is the same model that I had on the earlier tab, right? And so I just copied it onto this tab, right? But then I came down here and I when I first started this, I'll go back and I'll take out all of these numbers here. Boop. Oops, sorry, can't change part of a data table. Let me try this again here. Try to delete this. Can't change part of the data. I got to delete out all the right numbers. There we go. Okay, so this is how you started when you're using your data table feature of Microsoft Excel that I was showing you on a slide. You had to kind of build this, right? So you had to kind of like, and I'll show you on the PowerPoint slide. I'll tell you exactly, like for sales quantity, you have to leave that first cell, that 24 right there, you have to leave that blank. And it's just because that's how data tables work. But then down here, you just start typing in numbers. Now notice that I just, I typed in the 0, and then I put A25 plus 500. And then I put, A26 plus 500. So I just kind of built a little formula for these. I could actually type these in. I could have typed 500, 1,000, 1,500. I could have typed that in all the way up to 8,000. Could I go to 10,000? Sure. I could go down at the bottom and put 8,500, 9,000, 9,500, or whatever, right? It's your data, right? And so you're trying to say, how many do I need to sell? Because it says sales quantity. How many do I need to sell in order for my profit to be 0? Now, what we did up the top here in this cell here, which is B24, is I pointed back to my profit loss cell. And that's important. You had to point back to the cell in your model. You have to point to B16. And see at the top, it says equal to B16. If you don't do that, if you just type in minus 12,000, your defined data tables won't work, right? And so, and then what we do here, and this, I'll show you again on the PowerPoint how to do this, is I just block in the values for my table, and I go to data at the top. I go to, I got it. I go to what if analysis on the top right-hand side. I select, instead of goal seek, I select data table. And then it wants to know what's your row input cell and what's your column input cell. And let me go back to PowerPoint and just confirm that I'm going to get this right. My problem input cell is going to be B9. It's the quantity, right? It's the same thing I was telling you before. It's going to be the quantity sold. And so I got to come up here and note that the quantity sold is B9. And that happens to be, because we're doing columns in this table instead of rows, I have to put it in the column input cell, but that's just almost always what you'll be doing. And when you do that, the table, the Excel feature of data tables populates the profits. So it says this level of sales, here's your profit. This level of sales, here's your profit and stuff. And so you kind of got to go down through there. But again, you get in here and you see an entry for minus 4,000. That means you're losing 4,000. And then the next entry is you made 4,000, right? So that's 3,000 and 3,500. So you kind of know that your break-even point is somewhere in between 3,000 and 3,500. So just like the formula, it's there, and you have to poke around and figure out what it is until you get to 0. And that's why goal seek is very useful. So anyway, I'm gonna exit out of this. I'm going to go back. I'm going to share the PowerPoints. I just wanted you to kind of see this is what you have to build the model to be able to do these things here. So let me see if I can get back to my PowerPoints. So I'm almost done. I won't spend much more time on this lecture, but anyway, so that's what this screen describes. It says you can use a defined data table. Now we use the defined data tables for other reasons too, and so that's why I wanted to show you too. But one of the obvious reasons here was to be able to calculate sort of the break-even range or point, or to be able to try to find it. But again, what's the most effective of the three ways I've showed you to calculate break-even? The most concise is goal seek, because it goes right to the number. If I use the formulas, I I'm going to have to keep changing the quantity sold, changing until I get exactly 0. If I use a data table and I don't have the right number on the left-hand side, the exact number, I'm going to have to play around with this table to be able to figure out what that right number is. But with GoalSeek, I went right to it. So I only have 3 slides left. I'm almost done. So, and this was the results that I just showed you on Excel of when I ran the data table. It came back and it gave me this, and I kind of like, I know break even is somewhere between 3,000 and 3,500, but I still don't know the exact number. So I have to kind of play around and figure out what that is. Now, logically, you could calculate that it's right in the middle, 3,250, and that would be right. So, and so that's what you have to do. Is you spend the first 2 weeks doing this, and then we'll have another lecture talking about what we're going to do next. I want to make a couple comments about Excel and what you need to do to get your maximum best possible grade. One is you need to be able to put comments into these spreadsheets. So when you submit the spreadsheet to me, I can see what you did, and you can explain to me what you did. You can say, I use formulas here to calculate this, da, 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 da. And so, you know, I'll be looking at A, can I see your comments? And B, are they reasonably good comments about what your spreadsheet is doing? Because you put the spreadsheet away and you open it up again a year later, you know, if you don't have comments, you're gonna like glaze over. What is this? And trust me, I've been a computer programmer for 40 years, and I know that you have to have good comments in these things. Okay, so inserting Excel comments. When you insert Excel comments, I really don't want you to use this sad thing to say, but I don't want you to use the Excel insert comment feature. And that's what this says. It says, and so let me show you that. Maybe I need to go back to the spreadsheet real quick and just show you about inserting comments here. Let me do this. Okay, so now if I wanted to say in this that I used the data table feature of Microsoft Excel in order to calculate the break-even point, if I wanted to say that, right? And so let's say I want my comment to be, let's just say right in this cell here. A way that we learned when we first started learning how to do comments was we learned to do either right click or do insert. I'll just do a right click. And then it says new note down the bottom here, right? And so I insert a new note, so I can say, and it comes up with my name, and I can say used Excel data table to calculate the E point, right? So you can see that comment. So there's a comment, and you would think, oh, that's a reasonable thing. Dr. Kessler wants comments, and there's comments, right? But the problem is that comment's just this little red thing. And when I go to grade your stuff, I don't even, sometimes I miss that. And, you know, I say, it's only a B because you didn't have any comments instead of an A and stuff. And so we can't really use this comment feature. So how do you really put comments into spreadsheets? The way to do it is to go up and do to the insert tab at the top, which I just did. And then to come over here to text, to text, and then to insert a text box. And so what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna insert a text box here. Now that text box will stay there all the time. Well, I happen to have copied out my comments, right? So now that comment is there and I can see it. It's not some little red thing that I have to notice and stuff. So be sure to do insert text box for your comments. That's just really important. And then the only other thing I wanted to mention is, and I mentioned it earlier, is when you submit a file, a lot of times you're going to do these things, you're going to want it with 6 spreadsheets or 6 tabs, but 6 different spreadsheets or workbooks, because you're in data, your GoalSeek might open up a whole different Excel spreadsheet, right? And so if you have multiple spreadsheets open, let me open up a second spreadsheet real quick here. Let me just get a second spreadsheet. Okay. I think this might be the one I already opened here. I'll just open up anything else. I have some. I have something. I do painting. I paint and stuff. So anyway, so now I've got 2 spreadsheets open. Let me go back to first spreadsheet. Okay, so this is the spreadsheet and that I've calculated on, but now I've opened up a second spreadsheet because I did the GoalSeek, right? But when you do submissions for grading, I only want one spreadsheet. It's just too difficult for me to be able to open up one and open up another and open up another. So, and I covered this in my basic Excel lectures, but let's just say I wanted this thing, which is not important to you, to be inside the other spreadsheet, right? Because it's a different spreadsheet here. You look down here at the bottom, you can see I have 2 spreadsheets open, right? Y'all can see that. Okay, so but I don't want two spreadsheets. So let's say I want to get this tab down here where it says sheet one into the other spreadsheet. So what I do is I right click on that tab. You see, I'm going to right click, or I could go up top to do copy, right? And I'm going to do move or copy. You see the move or copy is the fourth option down. And when I click on it, I get this little dialog box, right? And so right now it doesn't have any place to move or copy to because I'm working in this one book. But if I do this little dialog box drop down up here, I can click on the other spreadsheet, name of the other spreadsheet, right? And then if you don't create a copy, it'll make it disappear, right? So I can go over and now if I click OK, it's going to take this tab and put it in the other spreadsheet. And I'll do that. Okay, and so it cannot send into the destination where it contains fewer rows and columns than the source. Okay, so you see, that's how you're supposed to do it, right? And you see, I had a little problem, and students often will have problems with this, but that's okay. That's the gist of my first lecture here. I did this lecture a number of years ago in 2015, and back in 2015, I was, it's hard to believe, but I had a camera behind me and I was shining it on screen. So when you look at the older lecture, you can't see anything. You can't see the cells because it's blurry, because the camera was a little too far away. But that was 6 years ago and the technology at the time was not that great. So anyway, I wanted to welcome you to the course. I wanted to give you a little bit of the course requirements. And I really wanted to talk about some of these first couple of Excel problems that we're going to do. And that's what we accomplished today. So please absolutely brush up on your Excel skills if you need to. Be prepared to spend sufficient time each week working on the problems. You can't start working on Sunday and send me questions about the problem because I'll help you, but not Sunday, when it's due, because I'll probably be watching TV or, playing tennis or golf or something. So, so you got to send me your comments like, Thursday, or Friday, or even Saturday, but not Sunday. Maybe Sunday morning, but probably not. So start your problems early enough in the week because you're going to run into glitches and you're going to be headachy and go crazy a little bit. So please start early enough so you can ask questions. Don't wait to the last minute. So I look forward to working with you this semester. I hope you enjoy this lecture, and there's a lot more lectures coming as well. Thank you for being here today, and we'll see you in the next lecture.